Welcome back to Beginning Band COVID Companion, Distance Learning for Band. This is video 2 of a 4-part series. You already learned how to assemble and disassemble your instrument. Now we will learn how to maintain the mechanics of the instrument and disinfect it. Then we will learn how to make beautiful sounds on our mouthpiece. Lastly, we will perform our first notes. I'm going to teach you how to maintain and disinfect your instrument. First, just listen. Don't try to maintain and disinfect your instrument yet. That will be next. We definitely want to use our mouthpiece brush on our mouthpiece every time we play. Clean the inside of your instrument with an instrument snake every 2 weeks or so. Store your instrument in a safe, dry place. You want to keep food away from your instrument. Don't allow grease, sand, dust, or dirt anywhere near your slide. Make sure you're not using dangerous chemicals without reading the instructions first. We don't want to store your music book inside of your instrument case either. It could bend something. Blowing food particles through your instrument is one of the primary causes of instrument malfunction. If you must practice immediately after eating, make sure to brush your teeth before playing. If you're practicing somewhere without your toothbrush, at least rinse your mouth out with water first. Take your mouthpiece out of your trombone and put it back in its case. Run your snake all the way through the end of the lead pipe and pull it back through in the reverse direction. You can do this through both pieces of the trombones if you want to, but the most important part is by the mouthpiece, since that's where most of the moisture and sediment will be coming from. Clean off the bristles with a paper towel after you're done snaking your instrument, and you're good to go. Slide grease never goes on the main trombone slide that you move to change pitches. Instead, slide grease is only for the tuning slide on top of your instrument up by the bell. Take a look at the picture. If where the arrow is where you're putting the slide grease, great, that's the right area. Do not ever put it on the large slide that you change notes with. Instead, we're going to be using slide oil on the part that you change notes with. Put your slide in either 5th or 6th position, exposing most of the slide. There should never be a reason to completely remove the slide, as it adds risk of adding dust and dirt and doing irreparable damage to the inside of your slide. Oil the inner part at least once a day. 2 to 3 drops will do. Some students' private lessons teachers will have them use slide cream in a spray bottle instead of slide oil. This is a perfectly fine alternative, but I think that in the beginning stages of you and your trombone, that slide oil is a perfectly easy and inexpensive way to go. If you have been sick or somebody near you has been sick, it's likely that your trombone has become infected too. The mouthpiece is, of course, the most important part to keep clean because it is the part that touches your mouth. If you have a mouthpiece brush, you can clean the inside of your mouthpiece every day. But if you don't, a Q-tip works just fine. Do not try to play right after you have put dangerous chemicals on the mouthpiece, because then they'll go in your mouth. Make sure to follow the directions on how long you need to wait for it to be clean. You will want to clean any part of the instrument where you have touched with your hands too. Some chemicals, like rubbing alcohol, will do a good job of killing germs, but it might weaken or remove the lacquer on your instrument, and you don't want that to happen. No matter what chemical you use, it is wise to wipe it down with a paper towel when you're done to avoid residue. Trombones can be given a bath in the sink or a bathtub, but that is a lesson for another day. You can bring the shine back to the outside of your trombone with a polishing cloth. I do this the morning before every performance to wipe off any fingerprints or tarnish, and it will be looking good as new for your performance. Do not store your music or your book in your trombone case. Sometimes there is an open slot for things like grease or a pencil. If you're really lucky, some trombones have a special zipper storage compartment for music books, but otherwise you're just going to have to use your backpack. With concern to COVID-19, it is extremely important for you to wash your hands before you play your instrument because you don't want your instrument to become infected. Wash your hands after you play your instrument because your instrument might have been infected and you don't want to get infected. The National Federation of State High School Associations published these findings on June 19, 2020, as guidance for how long you need to quarantine your instrument regarding the deactivation of COVID-19 on your instrument. The brass parts of your instrument take up to 5 days for COVID to properly deactivate. Any wood parts of your instrument or case, up to 4 days. Any plastic on your instrument will take up to 3 days. Strings, also up to 3 days. And any cork will be up to 2 days for COVID to deactivate. It is wise to take precautions in terms of eliminating the coronavirus on your instrument using things like disinfectant. But ultimately, one of the best ways to do that is to actually quarantine your instrument for a minimum of 5 days. This increases the likelihood of all of the COVID being deactivated before you go to play again. Now that we've finished talking about maintaining the instrument and disinfecting it, we're going to try to do it together. Now that you've heard me maintain and disinfect my instrument on the slideshow, it's time for us to do it together. If you haven't already, go ahead and get your trombone. The first thing we should talk about in maintaining the trombone is the most important part of the trombone, which is your slide. I'm going to go ahead and unlock my slide lock so that I can show you the inside. The inside part of the trombone is what you need to oil. Without oil, it gets a little crusty in there and the slide will not move very efficiently anymore. The biggest problem with slides getting stuck is food particles in your instrument. So you should never eat right before you play. And if you absolutely have to, because you're practicing for like 12 hours a day or something like that, then that's okay. Just brush your teeth or swish your mouth out with water first. Just requires a couple of drops on the inside slide only. There is never a reason to put slide oil on the outside of your slide. I'm going to lock the slide after I've finished oiling it. It's good to go. Another thing we need to do with our trombone is snake the trombone. The purpose of the snake is to clean out anything inside of the slide that doesn't belong there. It's always wise to snake starting with the lead pipe first because that is where most of the sediment will accumulate. This is the only time that I fully remove my slide from my inner slide. The reason I do this is because when we push the snake through the slide, we don't want any of the nasty things that we're trying to clean out going into the instrument further. So I just push the snake through all the way until it pokes its head out there. Once that's done, pull it back through again, and it's clean. If we had not taken that outer slide off, it would have just pushed that gunk further down the slide. Now, I'm going to do the other side too. It's out through the end, pull it back through, and it's done. I'm going to put that slide back on. When you do so, the water key needs to go on the same side of the slide as the longer part. Now lock the slide lock again, and we're all done snaking that part of the horn. You are allowed to snake the bell portion starting here if you want to, But there's usually not a great reason to do that because since it's so far away from the mouthpiece, it's usually not going to accumulate a lot of sediment in there. However, if it's been a very long time, go ahead and snake your bell too. Next, we should talk about slide grease. Now, it is so important that you not get the slide grease on the main slide. It's not intended for that. That's what the slide oil is for. Or, if your private lessons teacher has recommended that you use slide cream, the slide cream goes on this part. Slide grease never goes on this part. The slide grease is for the tuning mechanism at the top of your trombone. You can take that and expose a lot of the slide. Now, there's no reason for us to take the slide all the way out because it might get dirty in there. So I'm just going to expose the inner part of the slide right here. It looks a little bit rougher and not as shiny as the outside of the instrument, but that's the part we need to grease. I'm going to get just a little bit of it on my finger. I'm going to smear it on the exposed part of the slide. All the way around, make it nice and even. I'm going to push the tuning slide all the way back in. Pull it out one more time. Not all the way. I'm going to make it nice and even again and push it back in. This needs to be pulled out and pushed in based on getting your instrument in tune with a tuner. Now, we're not going to talk about that this video, but most students should have this slide pulled out about 1 centimeter when they're playing their instrument. So that's where I'm going to leave mine. If you have already purchased a mouthpiece brush, great. You can brush your mouthpiece out every single time you play. It's that easy. That's going to keep the sediment from transferring into your slide and you won't have to snake as much. Think of this mouthpiece brush as a tiny snake for your tiny mouthpiece. Disinfecting your mouthpiece is important more now than it has ever been in the past. Make sure you read the instructions on the back of the bottle to understand how long the disinfectant needs to be on your mouthpiece in order for it to be sanitized. Also, read all of the warnings on the bottle because you're basically putting dangerous chemicals onto the part of the instrument that touches your mouth. You can see where that would cause a problem, right? For that reason, and for another very good reason, you should also follow up any sanitation attempts on your instrument with wiping it down with paper towel. Not only will that remove the dangerous chemicals from the instrument before you touch or play it again, but it's also going to keep residue from forming on the outside of your instrument. Give it a couple of squirts. I spray only the parts that would touch my mouth. You're going to wait for however long it says to wait on the back of the bottle. After you've done that, like I said earlier, wipe it out with some paper towel, throw that paper towel away, and your mouthpiece has been sanitized. The polishing cloth. Now, as a trombone player, you get to hold a very large and very shiny instrument, which is really cool, especially if your instrument is looking top-notch and in great condition. So the morning before every concert that I play in, I make sure to shine the bell and the slide and any part that the audience would see so that my instrument is looking brand new. You'll want to wipe off any fingerprints that you have touched the instrument or any tarnish that is developed over time. A polished cloth will be your best friend for your instrument looking great.